Hey folks, it's the Beard and it's time for Dove's Dorky Digital Deep Dive. And this week we're going to take a look at Marvel's The Guardians of the Galaxy. Alright, this game came out in 2021 and it's kind of a third person action adventure with a little razzle dazzle of RPG here and there. The game centers around Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, and it starts when he is just about to be abducted and taken into outer space, where his story begins, and then it flashes forward to when the Guardians of the Galaxy are just starting up. All 5 members are there, and they're kind of trying to find their footing. Now, even though the game has been out for a year, I will still try to avoid as many big spoilers as I can. But once you get into the main mission, the crew will find themselves in a bit of trouble, and that trouble they're going to have to work off. And thus, the adventure begins with the Guardians of the Galaxy. The game is definitely a new look and a new take on superhero games, both in its storyline and its controls. It's a little bit of RPG style with both the story and a little bit with the controls as you're trying to control 5 different players all at once. It can be a little confusing, but once you get a hang of it, you can really dispatch the enemies quickly. I love the friendly and not so friendly banter between the Guardians that reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mouse can kill a sharp
A
claws
rat
and teeth.
can kill a scorpion.
Well, no shit, Frank, but we're not talking about a rat. We're talking about a little mouse.
Talking about a rat, it still would lose.
I know,
Nice
a little
outline.
mouse fighting a scorpion, and that is final.
But one of the other big draws for me is the music of Guardians of the Galaxy. In both the movies and in this game, they are incredible. But they do not overlap. They're not sharing music from the movies over here. They're using different tracks, and man, are they using them right. In very long fights, you're going to trigger a team huddle, and after those team huddles, you're going to hear the soundtrack. And that, for me, was my favorite part. Every time I'd see the team huddle indicator, I'd get all jazzed and pump up the music because I'm an 80s dork anyway, and I love that music. So this was the best part of the game for me by far. One of the aspects of the game that I truly loved that I was completely not expecting was the acting of the main characters. Now, I know Marvel's Avengers got ripped to shreds from reviewers because they used generic versions of the movie superheroes, but in this instance, I think it was the smartest call for Guardians of the Galaxy to go out and get some really good actors who weren't in the movies. At some point throughout the game, each character is going to have a little bit of a feature where you can get to know a little bit of the background of the character before they joined the Guardians, and each actor really gets a good chance to showcase their abilities, and I think they each did it very well. One of the last things I really enjoyed about the game was the story. From beginning to end, I think it did a great job of telling the story of each one of the Guardians of the Galaxy and giving them a good background and really flourished with their character arc. The story is solid and it kept me guessing until the end. I thought it was enjoyable and I think most adults will find it pretty good too. I did not enjoy the controls. They were a little clunky at first and slow to respond to the button movement. I found myself falling off the map once in a while when I was trying to get to the edge, and it was just quite annoying during fights and when I'm trying to explore certain maps. The semi-RPG control with all the characters sounded good at first, but at the end it just felt like I was just using random specials, and those specials were Rocket shooting something or Groot grabbing them or Drax running into them or Gamora slicing them. That's really all that the controls were. I would have liked to maybe use their movements a little more, or maybe even switch between characters, maybe in the next Guardians game, but I still think it was a good way to introduce the game and introduce the Guardians to the video game universe. My only other knock is really a nitpick. I just wanted a little more on some of the maps. I wish they were just slightly bigger. Now, this is not an open world game. Don't get your hopes up for that. But there's definitely levels where you can explore. And I just wish there were a few more where you could get to see the lore of Guardians like there was on the level where you're at nowhere. That was one of my favorite, and I just wish there was like one or two more where you could really dive deeper into what's going on with the Guardians. I definitely recommend this game for older gamers because it's so focused on the story while still letting you control the Guardians and have fun fighting and getting immersed in the lore of the Guardians. I think this is a great game that you can sit down and play in pieces so you don't have to dedicate a whole weekend to play the game or otherwise you won't get the full experience. No, this is a game where you can be an adult, you can live your life outside, play a little here, play a little there, and you'll remember the story like most TV shows or movies. Just take it at chunks. And it's really a good find at this point, relatively cheap, and I think you should pick it up if you're a big Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy fan, or any Marvel fan. If you're a nerd like me, you're going to enjoy this game. Check it out. Thanks, gamers. Folks, that's been Dove's Dorky Digital Deep Dive. Thanks for tuning in, my nerds, and GG.